I've always heard, obviously it's difficult evaluating quarterbacks. You hear some people say, too, that certain offensive line positions may be the hardest to evaluate a player coming up and, like, what he's going to be. And then I wonder, too, like kickers, like how do you evaluate, a kicker? What's the hardest position to evaluate in recruiting, if that's a fair question?
Well, I don't find I think the hardest may be corners and safeties.
Okay.
Well, a quarterback, you try to, is he accurate? Does he make good decisions? Does he have good feet? Does he have a strong arm? Is he fast? I mean, that's what you're left with. And then you try to take a look at how he is with his teammates. Does he elevate them? And, how does he play when he's ahead? How does he play when he's behind? So I don't think that's very hard. Offensive line, occasionally you anticipate a guy's going to have a growth spurt, and he doesn't have one. The type of guy that's been shaving since he was in fourth grade, and then he just never really develops much. And then because, O-line, you want him to marinate in the weight room for a couple of years. Now, we haven't been able to do that here up to this point, but when you're really good, I mean, the guys that play are juniors and seniors and have been in that weight room for, 3.5 years before they start. We just don't have that luxury yet. And then, kickers, you'd like them to have already done it for another team, whether JC or wherever it is, where they've had to do it kind of under the lights, so to speak, and either the ball goes through or it doesn't. So I don't think that's that hard. The hard thing with corners and DBs, sometimes you don't know exactly what they're being told. Also, you get a lot of partial plays, or depending on where, who's filming it, where it's filmed, how the field's configured. You maybe have the middle of the play and the end, but not the beginning. So you don't see how he starts, or you don't see how he finishes. They just get cut off. And then the other thing is sometimes they don't challenge a certain side or a certain corner, and sometimes and to a lesser degree safeties.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense, too, because, you think about corner, you're evaluating a player, but a lot of it is based on who he's playing against also.
Right.
If a kicker, it doesn't matter, like, if they block the field goal, but his job is not really affected by somebody on the other side of the ball, but that corner really can be. So right. I guess if you're evaluating a corner on film, you're really evaluating two players. Like, how good is he and how good is the guy he's playing against? Yeah,
no, that's true. That's true. And then, and then some guys you'll say, well, the ball never came to this guy's side. Yeah, because all those guys in that high school district know to stay away from that joker,
Yeah, right. And then, so we mentioned receivers.
And then, of course, they'll move him around and try to put him on your best guy,
Right, move him around. And I guess, too, Coach, like, I know – high school football, it like everything else has come a long way, but still there's an element of there's a lot of teams that the best player who he may be a great corner in college, but they have him at quarterback because he's the fastest guy on the team.
Oh, no question. Now, if you any option quarterbacks or running quarterbacks deserve a look to other positions, no matter what. I mean, what the high school coach is basically saying is, okay, this is my best player. He's hands down my best player. And, and we want him to lead the offensive effort, and he's going to touch the ball over and over and over. And if he wasn't sidetracked with that, he might be a great corner, a great safety, a receiver, a running, even a running back perhaps. And then, although, you sure stick, some of those running backs are pretty good DBs or linebackers.
Sure, yeah. Mike Leach on your radio right now. Post-signing day, there's a lot to get into. I talked on the show with a couple of your coaches on your staff, Coach Steve Spurrier Jr., Drew Hollingshead, got to talk with him. They both mentioned something called Midnight Maneuvers, the off-season workout program that kind of leads up to spring practice. First of all, like, what is it and why is it called Midnight Maneuvers?
Originally, I was actually going to do it at midnight. You sacrifice, you do something for the team. It's like it's kind of funny. They say, well, if you don't want the players to go out all night or hang out at the bars, get them up in the morning. Well, I don't think so. There's a bunch of those guys that are tough enough to do it anyway.
Right.
And then, but I'll tell you what. If you were to have an event, an off-season event at midnight, where it's impossible to go, and by the time they're done, I mean it's last call. I mean, and it wasn't totally driven by that, but the thing is you try to, stretch a team's ability to persevere. Is that their commitment, their sacrifice, that type of thing. And, part of the year you do the get up early in the morning to run deal, but then part of it, and then it was 10 o'clock. Then originally it was 10 o'clock. Well, now the wussification of football continues, so you can't do it at 10. You have to be done by 10.
Okay.
And so I think we'd start at 8 now, which we wouldn't. We would start at 10 if we were allowed to and be done. But the and it's basically circuit work, and we don't care what the weather is. No matter what the weather is, we're going to be out there. It's basically circuit work, a lot of quick step, change of direction, and finish. But finish is a big part of it. And we grade how everybody does each station, and and we and it's a push through rite of passage type of thing, and we do it we do it right before spring break.
Yeah. When I was here as a player in the 90s, Coach Sherrill had us doing that stuff in the early mornings. Okay, so it was a 5:30 a.m. deal, and I've always been an early riser. My roommate was our center, offensive lineman, Paul Mooney. He was a night owl. And he got to the point where he dreaded not so much the county fair we had to do.
Yeah, getting up.
The getting up. And I would wake him up and get him in the car, and we'd head to the Shira facility, and he'd puke on arrival.
Just the thought of it.
Just having to wake up and get there, and then the thought of what he was going to do. Most guys, we'd see if the workout made us puke. He went ahead and gave it up.
He went and got it out of the way.
That's right.
Well, in fairness to him, and the thing that I do agree with him, you're going to play a lot more fourth quarters at 10 o'clock at night than you are at 5:30 in the morning. So
it's very true. Very, very true. Talking with Mike Leach. Something came up this week on the show I thought I'd ask you about. Generated a big reaction among a lot of people listening on the show, including some people that have coached in high school. And that's the idea of something we saw kind of rampant this past year in college football, and that's faking injuries. Players, dropping to get a free timeout during the course of a ball game. And just curious, what are your thoughts on it?
I think they ought to get rid of it. I mean, if it's allowed, then you have to do it. I mean, you can't just sit there and diminish, give one team an advantage and you don't have it. So, so if they're not, if they're going to allow it, you got to practice and be pretty good at it. And, but no, if you make them keep the guy out for a series or something like that, what I heard him talking about, and it sounded like a reasonably good idea that, if the player fakes an injury, he's out the rest of the series.
Right.
And then, if he does the injury, he's out the rest of the series.
Right.
But
they don't judge whether he's faking it or not. It's just
it just all right. You're injured, don't you? Geez, we don't want it to get worse, so we're going to go ahead and leave you out the rest of the series so the medicals can, check it and sort it, and then a coach. Then they talked about it. You could use one of your timeouts to buy him back in.
Yeah, right. That's what I heard, and I know they were discussing it. It sounded like the committee, I mean, they're going to discuss it and possibly put that, in because it's an on year where they're going to vote some rules in. It may happen in 2022.
Well, they ought to do something. Yeah. I mean, and so I don't know. And I don't know if some team, if they'd risk, putting a few defensive players they don't plan to play with could take the dive for you, and then
yeah. If they have that luxury. Mike Leach on your radio. Last thing, Coach, over the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of stuff on social media from some colleagues, some SEC coaching colleagues of yours, about name, image, and likeness stuff. And it's like one coach accusing another coach in his program of having millions and millions of dollars in name, image, and likeness, and it affecting the recruiting. And then that coach goes on his press conference and really defended it and said, no way, it's not happening. That guy is, though, we're not, all this stuff, and its effect on recruiting. As you look at it through the lens of all these years of coaching experience, what effect is that having right now out there on the recruiting landscape?
I don't think we know yet. I think it's too premature to say. But right now, there's definitely some things that need to be solved because college football right now has unbridled free agency. I mean, they're in any. I mean, portal, okay, play.
Right.
And then, and then the other thing is there's no salary cap, so there's all kinds of inequities, and they, they did the very worst thing that they could for college football is they created a situation where there's not just bidding wars, but tampering. They've opened the door to tampering and bidding wars. And, I mean, and around our country, you see one dumb thing happening after the next. And boy, college football, they didn't want to be denied in any way, did they?
Wanted to join in?
Oh, yeah, they had to show that they were capable of really dumb decisions too, and they sure did. And then I also think a lot's exaggerated too, but
sure. From the perspective of my perspective as a former player, I was a guy who got benched, didn't leave, worked out. Eventually, it was it worked out.
Well, that's the thing is now we're not teaching guys to push through. Now it's like, oh, you didn't like this, all right, cut and run. Coach yelled at you, all right, cut and run. Okay, so you had a slightly better week than the other guy in your mind, and they didn't play you, all right, cut and run. I mean, that's no, it's like when I was 18, I made. Well, I can't say I necessarily constantly made one bad decision after the next, but I was inclined to. Mm-hmm. And, there's a point to where you just have to push through, where, you just have to stick it out and you just have to finish. And there's a lot of character and opportunity built with that. And, to deny, our young men that so many of us grew up with, I think it's a mistake. I don't think it builds, good examples, good leaders, good work ethics, or any of that.
Sure. So if I were to make the statement, and I have on the radio show, that I kind of wished, and maybe it gets there, where more players and families, they see it as a last resort sort of thing as opposed to their first impulse.
Oh, I think we've got a lot of first impulse going on.
I think so.
Well,
too.
like guys that leave just because they want to play, that's one thing. Moving up a level, that's another. Okay, but okay, and then the tragedy of this, they never want to talk about this. They don't like to talk about this. Because it's in the thousands. It's not a small,
the numbers
that aren't going to land anywhere.
Right.
That aren't going to land anywhere. I mean, what are they going to do? Sell big gulps? And everybody likes big gulps every so often, but
hard to make a living selling.
I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, and so they left a good situation where on scholarship, and then they don't get picked up. Well, And then, I mean, if we improve society with this approach, what are we doing?
Sure.
And then the other thing is and I don't know where this lays exactly because there's an awful lot to think about on this, but you're arguably diminishing opportunities for high school players,
Sure. Yeah, and I've heard that as well. Interesting stuff, and the landscape kind of continues to change, but it's good to talk with you about it. And I know that we're really looking forward to watching spring practice, which is just right around the corner. Basketball, then baseball, then spring practice will be here.
Yeah, no, it sure will. But in fairness, with the portal has not hurt us very bad. I mean, we've for the most part, we either lost guys we needed to lose, or we lost guys that just wanted an opportunity to play, which you understand and respect that. And then we've gained some real quality guys. As a matter of fact, today we gained a bunch of quality guys, and then and we're really excited to have them. And well, we've already greeted a number of them that are already here. But so that's exciting too.
Yeah, Coach, thanks.
All right, thank you.